What's up? What's up? I'm back. About to get more into where we come from as the native people, and I was just shout out to Dan Calloway watching this video, man. It made me look into my family, and I started discovering, where they was from and the areas and what time they existed in these places, and tried to start looking up, what happened to them, and I found some different things out, and I seen that they was a part of the Indian Removal Act, and the fact that they called them African or Native, I mean, they called them black, but they was a part of the Indian Removal Act. Just go to show you how the little stuff that they tell us was very confusing, and they mixed a lot of different things up, even with the labels and things. They start naming us mulattoes and shit like that to kind of confuse us and get us, out of that whole Native American idea. And it's the same thing with how they treated Native Americans over the 400 years that they've been here, from just the subjugation, and 400, 500 years that the colonizers been here, bro. Since really the 1990s, they have been, after they put them all on the reservations and shit, bro, they've been integrating them and trying to make them into the European way of lifestyle, even to the name changes. Like, they talk about how African American got their name changed, nigga. Fucking, what's the native, his name is John Appleseed. Like, they start naming these niggas all type of shit, changing their names so they can't remember where the fuck they come from. Sounds familiar. And the reason I wanted to hop on that, because when I was at TSU, this was before I was like finding knowledge and things like that. This was like the start of it, like the high peak of it, in the sense of, I was like, what the fuck am I doing at this school if I know like shit that the teacher's not telling us? Like, I started decoding shit and figuring shit out, and like literally they were saying the Native Americans on the reservations had to be integrated into the colonizer schools. The reservations was pretty much like projects in a sense, and like they started dressing different, speaking different, like everything, like their whole approach. And I said the name changes. I'm like, bro, that's us. Like, they make us want to fit in. That urge to try to fit in, that peer pressure to be like everybody else when we're not. Like, cause like it drove me crazy, because I was looking around at school and I'm like, bro, nobody feel like they talking about us. Not in the sense of I knew that we was Native Americans, but in the sense of like, bro, they did the same thing to the natives then, so they doing to us now, from name changes to everything. I'm like, bro, why is this shit so similar? Like, that shit was dawning on me like so hard. I'm like, bro, this shit don't even make sense. And I didn't even go back to that class no more, because I'm like, bro, this bullshit. Like, I literally, that was like, I think that was the semester I dropped out of TSU. I'm like, bro, fuck this shit. This shit ain't for me, bro. Like, I'm not getting what I need to know. Like, this is a African American school, and they teaching us about Native Americans, but don't even like they don't even compare how the Native Americans was getting done, just like they do this. And I'm like, bro, that's a perfect teaching point. But I'm like, this white ass teacher ain't gonna never put them hoes together. And just to get into it more, I'm like, it just go to show you how when you start finding knowledge and shit like that, it all resonate, and you get the answer to some of the questions you figured out. Like, you started asking, that pretty much started your whole journey that you don't remember that you asked, because it was so early in your journey type shit. And I'm just gonna read some stuff, and bro, I was just looking into it and seeing like, when was the peak of slavery? It was in the 1940s, and I'm gonna read different things. And I talked about the Indian Removal Act being in the 1830s, but I'm gonna just kind of show you how they all align up, and show you how, after 1830s, the 5 civilized tribes were moved: Chickasaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminoles, and Cherokees. By 1839, the final war with the Cherokees had been ended. Let me see. Am I saying that right? No, I lied. 1858 was the last war with the Cherokee Indians, and they pretty much yeah. That's what I want to go back to. I'm trying to find what the fuck. All right, by May 8, 1858, when the United States declared the end of the conflict in the Third War with the Seminoles, more than 3,000 of them had been moved to the west of the Mississippi River, and roughly over 200 to 300 Seminoles remained in Florida in the hidden swamps. And you got to understand that numbers, that 200, 300, it could be thousands. And I talked about it in the We've Been Deceived video, and they talked about how the Seminoles and a lot of the Native Americans was moved to Oklahoma, and that's the Trail of Tears that happened in the 1930s, and it ended in 1939, right before the peak of slavery. And you start making sense. It's like when they started having all the control over the Native Americans and where they going, and where when they wouldn't pretty much in that they couldn't protect themselves anymore. They wasn't populated in the sense of they wasn't strong. They wasn't, when they had control of the Native Americans, that's when the American slavery started to boom. And it literally died in the 1860s, I'm sorry. And I'm about to read this. In the 1840s, the slave population reached a peak of 59, almost 60,000 people. By 1860, there were 37,000 enslaved people, just 63% as many slaves as two decades ago. And the war with the Cherokee ended in 1958. That means that was pretty much the last Native Americans that they had to get rid of, the last Native Americans they had to integrate into the American way, in a sense of even if they was on a reservation, if they were slaved, if they were dead or whatever. Like, they didn't have no more people to really oppress or subjugate, whatever the fuck that word is. And that's why they didn't have any more people to circulate into slavery. That's why it started dying in the 1860s. And I talked about how 1865 and how the Civil War ended up happening because they couldn't deal with a lot of the Native Americans, and they stopped calling it Native American revolutions and started calling it slave revolutions and things like that with Nat Turner and things after time progressed. And then they started becoming riots and things like that. They started changing the names and the labels of these things so we wouldn't interpret and understand them as, one long rebellion and shit like that. They started, separating us as a people and us as our history. And if you look at maps from the 1920s all the way up to the 1960s, about a decades, each year in that Florida region, even in the Texas and Louisiana area, even though it was owned by Mexico and Louisiana, like all the way in that area was Native American. Even the 13 colonies had Native Americans in it. All of America had Native Americans in it and was popularized by Native America. But you look at the revenue, you can see how hell it was for the 13 colonies and how it wasn't easy for them because the Native Americans knew everything. But if you look at when they went back from the Oklahoma shit after the Trail of Tears and went back to Florida, plus the 300 or however many people were still there, they went back to free people in the 13 colonies that were still being enslaved. They remade settlements after they got wiped out and got moved in a sense and came back, bro. And they was like, we still gonna help these people. And if all those people were African American, it wouldn't even make sense for these Cherokee people and these Native American people to go save them people. They were going back to save them, their own people, in a sense, even if it was 13% of the African Americans that came from the 13% of Africans that came from Africa or whatever in the American slavery, they still integrated with them because, like I said before, in the Indian Removal Act, they moved Africans with my family. They considered them black and they would have considered them African. They didn't consider them Native, and they moved them to Mississippi. She moved from North Carolina to Mississippi to I think Texas, if I believe I'm thinking of the same person. I found a bunch of different people, and it's go to show you they went back to the South Carolina and the Florida area after they came from Oklahoma, and they were still trying to help people. They were still trying to get people free, and they were still having rebellions all the way up till the Civil War, even past that. And this was in 1858. That's only 7 years before the Civil War that the Cherokee War ended. And then we fought in the Civil War too. So it's like, bro, we've been fighting for our own rights in a sense for a long time. And those are the people that decided to integrate into the Civil War and believe that one side of America was actually fighting for them. That's where the whole joke, that's really where we start getting confused. We start thinking, oh, one side's trying to help us because they was the liberals. Nah, it's all a scam. Let's see if I can find something else. And then just like I said, that they were stopping off in between it. They all didn't go to Oklahoma. Even when they were going back to Florida, you can't believe they all made it back. Like General Winfield Scott sped the removal up along, as well as put Native Americans into stockages along the way. And stockages are pretty much like either prisons or like zoos made out of like wood and shit like that. And it just go to show you, bro, they wasn't all making it to Oklahoma. A lot of them stopped off for different reasons before then and repopulated America, even though they wouldn't call them Native Americans. Like the Creole people in Louisiana are Native Americans. A lot of the black people in Florida, a lot of the black people in America are fucking Native American. There's plenty of history and there's plenty of things that can show you that. Like I said, I only had to go back to, we think the 1860s are so long, but I literally could find people that was around in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. I think I can't go past 1860. Like, that's as far as I can get. And, well, I go to the white dude that was a slave master, because I even got white people in my shit. Like, if you, that's what's crazy. Like, if you realize how much Native Americans was, and if you realize that only 13% of Africans came over, like, the fact that I'm integrated with some type of European, like, you don't think that we mixed with Native American, bro? Like, that's crazy. We all probably mixed with European, and they was not the majority here. Native Americans was, and we were like Native Americans, trying to avoid oppression. If you look at yourself as being a part of that 13% that came from Africa, even if you think that you're that African blood, bro, it's a good chance that you mixed and integrated by the time that you became the being that you are now. Like, we all literally have some type of Native in us. Even if it's not full Native, it's a good percent that it's more Native than not. Like, honestly, like this at this rate, let me see. Oh shit, I can go to 1816. I can go to 1796. I'm looking at my photos of the shit that I screenshotted, but it's not too much information on them, so I can't really pull. Like, I don't even know what. I just know the parents' name. I don't even know where they was from. Actually, I know they were from North Carolina. I'm sorry, but that's about all I know. And that their daughters was the one that got moved from North Carolina. It's a lot of different things that I found, and if you just go and try to do as much research as you can, you'll realize how connected and how close you was to being, you know, these things that we've been talking about. Because a lot of people don't believe that we were rebels and that we started revolutionaries. Like, we were revolutionaries. Like, they think we were subjugated. They truly want to believe that we were enslaved. And I get it. It's what we've been taught. It's a good way to live, because you get to have this self-righteousness feel about you, because you know you've been oppressed, and you feel like you can say anything because it's America and America owe you and shit like that. In a sense of even if America do owe you, they're not gonna ever pay you, and that you'll know that if you stay connected to your history and you understood that shit, bro. America never pay you what you owe, period. I don't give a fuck in this reality or not. Like, if you do everything you gotta do in this reality that they say, bro, they still gonna text your ass. They still gonna want what the nigga say, half? Nigga, you can suck half my dick. Like, that's what you gonna have to tell them niggas. And that's what it's always gonna be. From back then when our people was doing it to our kids, bro, they never gonna receive their full just due. Even if you work 12 fucking hours a day, you're not getting what you fully owe, and that's period. America always giving the worker the shorthand of the stick, to be honest. And I kind of got off topic, but it just go to show you, like, bro, you stick to that history, you find out where you from, you realize we rebels, you realize we not subjugated, you realize the place we're in is hell, bro, in the sense of, bro, these colonizers really took over and think they on some shit. They really think we're not gonna figure this shit out. And, bro, if you look at just America, period, how all America had Native Americans of different races, of different, like, how Africa got all those different countries and shit like that. You consider those territories like America. We had so many different tribes, and even if it was the same name of a tribe, bro, it was the motherfucking treetops instead of the motherfucking groves type shit. And I'm just making shit up. I don't think them two opposites, but I'm just making shit up, bro. We had different things, that different cultures and shit like that all was wiped away in America. Like, and it's crazy, bro, like, that they took over from, I mean, it took them a long time. They've been here since, like, the 1500s, 1600s, like, and it took them till now to, you know, pretty much get all of the shit without it being questioned. Like, the last revolutions and the last people that realized they weren't native stopped happening, like, in the 50s and the 40s. Like, if you talk to your grandma, she can tell you that y'all got native in y'all blood, guaranteed. And those are kind of like the last generation that kind of forgotten shit. And where if you still can tap into that knowledge, you need to go talk to them and try to find out and actually do research, and not just, you know, be like when we was in school back in the day, like, I got native in my blood, but you don't never put no actual research or no actual real belief into it. And that's really just, you know, the summary of what I was talking about. Might make another video there, I'm not really sure, but man, you guys gotta realize, bro, where we come from, and we warriors, bro, and we not down for subjugation. And this integration shit only came out of confusion, honestly. Like I said, they thought that the liberal America was gonna take care of them, and we clearly seen what Abraham Lincoln said. He said he would never free the slave if he would have never freed a slave, like, if he didn't have to. Like, it was only tactics because that's what they had to do. And I talked about the tactics they needed. They needed to seem like they still had power, so they freed the slaves in the sense of, nigga, we been free. We still been fighting for our shit. And even that you calling us free, you still gonna try to take our lives and shit like that. It's just a joke. And bro, I mean, if y'all don't believe that, bro, I mean, cut on the news and believe the shit that they got telling you, because I mean, they showing you what they doing to us, and y'all still can't believe it. Y'all still think America gonna change, but I guess I'm out.